guys, welcome to Millionaire Brand Creation. I am super excited to have a friend of mine on, Waseem Hamadeh. We've been friends now for, geez, probably at least 7 to 8 years. And Wasim actually bought my Aston Martin from me. But more importantly, he's someone I look up to, someone that's a real estate entrepreneur, an entrepreneur in general, and someone that has a deep knowledge as a young person like myself of the real estate industry, and really excited to have you on, Wasim.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate it. And thanks for doing this, Michael, too. This is great for the audience and people to get involved in groups like this.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So let's just go back in time. Let's go back to you as a child. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what gave you that entrepreneurial drive.
So I grew up in Syria, not grew up. I was born in Syria and then moved to Chicago when I was about 3 years old. So from 3 to 12, I lived in Chicago. And then in Chicago, my parents came to the United States with nothing. So we had no financial means, didn't have any relationships. My dad was 32 when he came here and he didn't speak any word of English. My mother didn't speak in English. So just watching them work hard, they opened up a jewelry store and they started getting in the jewelry business. So they opened up a jewelry store, slowly kind of grew the jewelry store. It treated us okay, but we always lived in a like 1 bedroom apartment. We moved up to like a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom house in Skokie, Illinois. And the house I thought was large when I was a kid. And now looking back, I look at it on Zillow and you can kind of pull it up. It was like 1,100 square foot house, right? But it was a massive house for us. So it was a big deal. And then they always just worked hard, and just seeing that work ethic was important. And then we moved to Arizona in 1997. So I was about 12 years old when I came to Arizona, 12 or 13. And then from there, ever since, it's been in Arizona. So my dad, he went from jewelry and then he started buying a little bit of real estate, but it was very speculative. It was Vicksburg, land in Vicksburg, which is on the way to LA, on the I-10. Didn't really know much about it. And then for me, I either wanted to be a doctor or like high finance, corner office, looking on in Manhattan. So my undergrad was ASU finance. And then I went to U of A and my dad for medical. And he was like, "What are you doing in medical? You should come and do real estate. You should be a business owner. You should create wealth." And he did not have a lot in life. So we were still growing, but he started getting around real estate. So he understood it a little more. And he's like, "Why are you gonna go be a doctor? Go have doctors work for you. Go buy a hospital." And like, so he was always striving for really big goals. And then I got into it when I was 18 years old. And then ever since, I've been in it now I'm 36, so almost 2 decades of real estate.
How did you get going? Like, what was your first move? Because I know a lot of viewers are in two positions in their lives, especially now with the economy. One, they're looking to get started, or two, they're kind of looking to hit the reset button and generate some monthly income. Or three, they are already doing well, but they want to do better. What are some of the steps that you took in the beginning to get going?
Yeah, first I was always live below your means. Real estate, you'll hear it. It's like a feast or famine business. And you see guys, I never want to be one of those guys that have very, very large years and they're living high. They're at Steak 44, 3, 4 nights a week, and they're going to all these upscale restaurants. They have the second house, the third house, maybe a boat, maybe a plane. And then a heavy recession comes in 2008, which I saw it. Michael, you're probably in it. You were in it at the same time. Like I got into real estate in 2005. So I saw the run up, and then you got these older guys that were heavily invested, and then the crash comes. And I don't want to be in this cycle where you make a lot of money and then you're selling your house. And I care a lot about family. So I'm married now, and I have my son just turned 14 months, a 14-month-old. And I did not want my kids to grow up with that, where we're selling our house, it's struggling, we have nothing, and then we're getting more again. So I would always say live below your means, be cautious, and then just start small, right? Save. The best times of my life, I remember I lived at the Plaza Residences right next to Kierland over there on Scottsdale Road and like Thunderbird Greenway. I paid $800 a month for rent, and it was a 1 bedroom. And I went and did my master's in real estate development, and I was working at Land Advisors with Greg Vogel over there, the CEO of Land Advisor organizations. I was very blessed to have a lot of great mentors, but I saved all my commissions. I lived below my means. I stayed in that apartment. I saved all my money, and I just kept parking it away. until I was ready to make the right real estate investment move. And then you start investing it. But you want to make sure you get that knowledge. I would say at 18 years old, I was doing brokerage. So I was saving all my money from real estate deals, but it was little brokerage. It wasn't a lot of like sexy transactions. It wasn't anything big. And then the first remodel I did was during the recession. I bought one from a bank on Bell Road. It was like $115,000, I think I paid from the bank. And then we did a little light remodel. We bought the countertop from Home Depot, right? Like people were not paying a premium. Now you got all this stuff in Arcadia and PV and it's sexy and it's 10 million bucks, right? Back then, there was no money out there. So I just started small. I did that with one friend. We each put in like $50,000 each, which was like all the money I had. And then I just start small. And then you build that way and you learn a lot that way too. You learn on what to do, what not to do. And it also teaches you to pinch pennies. Like that's important. And it's easy to loosen up and spend money. It's really tough for all these guys that are like high on life and they love spending. And then they think they're going to start doing investments and they overspend on stuff because we see it all the time. People overdevelop, overbuild. There's a guy right now in PV that has a house listed MLS. It's not built yet. You've seen it. It's $75 million. I'm like, all right, I don't know how deep that
Rod
market
Cullum, baby, Rod Cullum.
yeah, PV's not there yet. And I think the guy behind it is like Wow Properties. It's some guy that was doing homes in like Beverly Hills or LA and he comes to Phoenix and he's like, oh, I'm gonna do this big thing. Don't get lost on selling yourself your dream either. So just be cautious and slow and go.
So with your child, one question I always ask is if you had one piece of advice as they grow older, what would it be and why would it be that?
For the child, for my son,
Your son, yep.
I'd probably say keep great mentors in life. That's the biggest key is create that mastermind group. I read a long time ago, Think and Grow Rich, and I recommend it to everyone that has not read it. You have to read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's about creating your mastermind. And I always want to have a lot of mentors in life, and then those mentors turn into friends, and then you find new mentors and you turn those into friends. And next thing you know, you're surrounded by high caliber people that value success, value accomplishment, and you want to make sure that they're valuing family and life too. You don't want just successful people that have very bad personal lives either.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Now, who were your mentors in life and what did they teach you as you kind of progressed up the ladder?
So I was part of the Master's Real Estate Development program at ASU, and that was a great program. I had a lot of great people in there. The professors were, everyone was adjunct, so they're active in the real estate field. So Jody Pekorski, who's the head of the real estate law department at Snell and Wilmer, was one of the law professors. Grady Gamage Jr., who the Great Gamage Auditorium is after his father. So I learned from great guys, but they weren't just professors. I would reach out to them after class. Mark Stapp was the executive director of the program. And I made good relationships with them, very good relationships. And I'm still very close with all of them. And then from there,
we had
yeah.
Mark on here actually. Yeah, Mark's my neighbor over in Casablanca.
Oh, that's incredible. So Mark was at the holiday party, by the way. You probably saw
Oh,
him
he
there.
was? I didn't see
Yeah.
him. I didn't see him.
So Mark was
Yeah.
at the holiday party I hosted. You were there, Michael. And then those were all great mentors, had a lot of respect for them. I learned a lot from them. And then you turn into a friendship. And then I had Greg Vogel at Land Advisors Organization, great organization, largest land brokerage in the United States. He was a great mentor of mine. And then from there, after I left the brokerage world, I started HOH Investment Group, and I'm in the office here. Mike Lieb's in the office, Nico Howard's in the office. So Wayne Howard, who was Nico's father, was a great mentor of mine. So I would go out to lunch a lot with him. And then I came in the office here with him when he was alive. So Wayne Howard and I were in the office here together. Nico was here. I think you had Nico on not that long ago.
Yeah, last week. Yeah.
Wayne was a great mentor. And then now I think it's having just good group of friends and organizations. ULI Next is a good group, Partnership Forum. There's a lot of little mastermind groups that are real estate driven. Being around those, and then from there you pick and choose, right? So you'll meet good people and good members, and then pick the top 10 guys that you think are just they're accelerating and turn them into good friends. And then it's more collaborative, right? The mentorship thing, as you get older, it's tough to find it. And as you get more accomplished, it's tough to find it where it's easier when you're younger and you're looking up to people. So now I kind of look up to like, it's not really more look up, but it's like, you want to keep a good surrounding of good friends, right? Idolizing guys that you're like, I love what they're doing in their career. I love what they're doing in their personal life. And these are my good friends now.
So if you had to look back on your life, obviously you're a young guy like me, slightly older, and you've made a lot of smart moves. What are some of the things you would have done differently, or what are some of the things you would have done sooner to accelerate your success?
So I would say that's a really good question, Michael. I would say um, what I would have done differently is I don't know if I could say I would have done a lot of things differently, right? I would like to say, oh, I want to be more aggressive. I should have been more aggressive. And it's easy 2020, right? Hindsight, it's so easy to look back and like this whole run up. I turned down things and I dropped escrows on properties. I had multiple properties in Paradise Valley under contract at incredible prices. I dropped them, right? I was worried about taking on too much risk. We're not worried about taking on too much debt. Long term, that plays in our favor. So for all the guys out there that want to get very aggressive and forget about the fundamentals, I would caution, right? Because this last run up, we probably hear stories of a whole bunch of friends that made a lot of money, or guys that got into land, or they were entitling apartment buildings, guys that were $3 million under contract and they sold it for 10 with never closing, right? 12 months went by, they had a long term contract. That doesn't happen, and that is not, you can't replicate that success. So I would say being cautious is very important, and that's more sustainable long term. And then done earlier, I feel like just make sure you're always investing early as you can. Start saving as much as you can, and then park capital in long term assets. I meet guys all the time, and I grab coffee with them, and they're asking for mentorship, and I talk to them, and they all want to leave their careers to start investing. That's a mistake. Like start investing first, because the career is what's paying for your bills, and keep going, because that investing is not going to pay off for multiple years probably. So
And
start planning.
what would you invest in? Like what are some of the specifics that if I had 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand saved up as a new investor, what are some of the things I should be looking at placing it into?
I mean, I'm a big fan of home ownership. I think if someone does not have a home ownership and they're renting, they should probably purchase a house. The power of leverage in real estate is very powerful. So if you have 30,000 or whatever someone has, and they can put a down payment on a small condo or a small house somewhere, and it's an area that's getting better, they can see sales start increasing in that neighborhood. I would look at buying something, show it as a primary residence, even if you don't want to live there, and then rent it out afterwards, or bring in roommates and start that way. Because then 3, 4 years from now, you used it as a utility, and then you sell it, but you pulled out maybe 100,000, but you only put 30 in, right? That's 3x, that's 2x, 2.5x on your money, or 3.5x on your money. That's important. And that slowly kind of builds them up, because it's difficult. And now pricing is higher, right? So the barriers of entry are higher. So it's very tough for someone to get started now. But if you're a wholesale, you can be a wholesaler and make a lot of money doing quick deals and just watching the market while you're making money and saving it, right? It's really easy to get into a deal. It's very hard to get out of a deal. So I don't recommend. I have a couple of people that I know that one guy was inheriting a small number, but he didn't know anything about real estate. And he was like, "Well, I think I'm gonna do this." And I'm like, "Dude, just go learn, sit. Right now is not the time to get aggressive in the market. Just sit and learn and observe and watch it for 2, 3 years of how things are changing. Because the first thing you buy, it may take you 5 years to get out of it, and you break even, and you would have lost out on other opportunities that could have come by."
That's very true. That's very true. Now, some of the mentors that you mentioned Craig Vogel, you mentioned Mike Lead. What are some of the highlights that you learned from them? What were some of the key nuggets where they told you these things and you're like, this is worth tens of millions of dollars?
So I would say Greg and Wayne are the two probably the biggest mentors I've had regarding investments in real estate. Greg, a lot of it is like you don't have to have a book of 50 clients or 100 people. You don't need to know everyone in the world. You just need a core group of like 5, 10, 15 people, right? So like you don't need to go out there and try to build a whole bunch of relationships on partners trying to put money in, right? So like that's important. And then market cycles, just watching market cycles. We're in the land business. So we saw deals, they go 10, 15, 20 years longer than people anticipated when they first purchased the property. That's a normal market. This past 5 years, the past 2 years, that's an anomaly. That doesn't happen all the time. That's a market cycle. So just be patient and kind of go in for the long run. And then with Wayne, I learned a lot from Wayne. So I have so many rules of thumbs I can share. A big part of it is you'll always have more money than you need, right? So like we always try to stress ourselves and we always want to do more. If you have that personality, you're going to be fine. You're always going to think about it. You're always going to want more. So try not to overdo it. I have a bad problem with that. I overstress too. I do it too. It's like nice aspirational goals. Um, and then just I think it's just being cautious, right? Like great deals turn into good deals turn into bad deals. So that stuff is very common. Everyone over expects and over anticipates the performance on properties and projects, and they never perform the way you think. They always underperform, right? But if you feel like your money's safe, it's worth pursuing. If you feel like your money's safe and there is something that you're going to make, that's good. It's a good risk reward. You're not losing anything. Maybe you gain 10, maybe you gain 100. That's a good risk to take. Just don't bet that you're going to gain 50, and don't be on tight margin, because unexpecteds come up and they'll cost you a lot of money and you'll lose money on those deals.
Mm-hmm. So let's say you're 36 now, which you are, and let's say for some odd reason, all your money, your knowledge, all this, your knowledge is intact, but your money's stripped away from you, your contacts, all those things. What would you do today to like reinvent yourself? What are some of the steps you might take if you didn't have all the assets that you have now?
So that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. It's scary when you do think about it, though.
Yeah.
We work so hard in everything we make, and then you want to preserve it. I would say if that did happen, I would probably start meeting with every single broker, try to find deals out there, and just trying to be the guy that can sell good opportunities that are coming up, right? I'd try to find the right deals and then bring in the capital for it. I would syndicate the capital. Or if the market is very tight at that time, there's not a lot of people placing capital out there. There's always a space for guys that are like pitching things really quickly, wholesalers, the mortgage lenders, the mortgage bankers that were in it. I know guys that were like early 20s and they're making $10,000 to $15,000 a month because there's so much refinance and interest rates are low. So find an industry in the real estate world that is churning over inventory quickly and just collect those coupons, right? Whatever they're doing. The wholesalers right now, they're still pitching a lot of stuff. I just had a deal that I went to go look at. Someone brought me into it. I was going to fund the deal. I was going to put the capital behind it. And 2 hours later, I went back to my house. I called him. I was like, yeah, go write an offer on this. Let's lock it up. Don't even write it. Just take what they get. And he called me back. He's like, oh, it's already gone. And those guys already wired the funds. Those wholesalers are pitching a lot of product, and they're still doing it. And they're making little bips on each one of them. And that's fine, right? Collect the money, save it, store it, and then go look for opportunities that you can bring in partners in and do them, right? I think that route makes sense. You got to do it with partnerships in the beginning and friends and people that bring in capital, but you're going to be the hard work. You're going to be doing the work on it. You're going to be seeing it all the way through and being and executing properly.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the common pitfalls that you see in young or older entrepreneurs? And I say that because some of the happiness quadrants, I think, change as we get older, right? You and I are young. You and I are both very cautious in how we allocate funds, and we love nice things. I mean, you have a beautiful home and, a beautiful lifestyle and all that stuff, but you worked up to it, right? The cars, your wife, all these things, right? It costs a lot of money to maintain. What are some of the pitfalls that people don't need that they think that they need? And then what are some of the things that they should be focusing on that really bring you a lot more happiness in that quadrant?
So I didn't start. That's a really good question. And I think the reason that's good is because I've gone coffee with a lot of young guys recently, and every single person thinks that they're going to be multimillionaires in like 2 years, and they haven't done jack. Like they haven't done anything yet. And like one guy was like, "Oh yeah, I want to have $10 million, or I want to do something by like 25," and he was like 22. I'm like, you have 3 year runway. Like you've done zero. So I think that whole like mindset of just quick, quick like gratification is bad. It has to be a long-term mindset. And don't ever get ahead of your skis. People start making some money and then you start spending some money. I never spent any money I had until it was passive, right? Like now the house, the car, I just bought another fun car about like a 1987 Ferrari, and it was just a fun car. I just want to have like a little toy car, and I want to get like a 1970s Porsche. And I'm not even a car guy, right? And I always hate new cars because they depreciate. So I'm like, this holds some value, and I'll sell it. But I didn't start spending any money on my lifestyle until I had passive income coming in from cash flow properties, rental properties, and then I looked at it as whatever I spend, I'm not touching my savings, right? Like I don't want to 200, 300, 400,000 a year and spend three, four, $500,000 a year and always play catch up, because when the market stops, it all stops. And now you still have the higher lifestyle. I know guys that make $2 million a year and they spend $2.5 million a year, and they have a rolling IRS tax bill. So like they never catch up, and they're making great money, right? So like I would always make good money, invest it properly. If you start making, doing a couple investments and you're getting $40,000 a year in a couple of rental properties, that's great. Still save that savings, save that passive cash flow, and reinvest that passive cash flow until you get to a couple 100,000 passively, right? And then you're still working and making a couple hundred. Now, like it makes it easier. And then slowly the goal is your active income is less, or there are bigger deals here and there, and your passive is coming in at a great clip. And that covers all your lifestyle expenses.
So would you recommend for people hitting the reset button at any age, 10, 20, I mean, 20, 30, 40 years old, let's say, that they should really be focusing on taking capital, saving it, living below their means, and really just start chunking it away at income producing real estate? Is that the main metric to do it?
100%, 100%. I think that's the best metric. There's a lot of money in land, but you have to have staying power in land, and you got to be able to buy land, sit on it. Your parking capital that is useful to you that now you can't touch for 2 to maybe 5 to maybe 10 years. And then you got to put money with legal fees and site planning and entitlements, and that costs money. So in the beginning, if you're resetting or you're starting fresh or you're getting into real estate, invest it first in cash flowing assets, because those cash flowing will grow. You can also get the leverage component to it. So you have that, and you got depreciation component to it too. So now you're getting the depreciation, your interest you're writing off the interest, you have the leverage component, and you're writing off the interest, but you're also gaining principal in the property, because usually they're a PI loan. So you're gaining principal. So you're doing all these things. You start off by making a little bit. You might make $500 a month on one house, right? Maybe a couple $100. At the end of the day, maybe you're at like $10,000 a year on one property. But that's how I started, right? And that incrementally starts growing, and then you get bigger. And now I only do luxury space now, so I only have luxury properties and PV in Scottsdale. I just bought one in Arcadia. So those I might make $70,000 on one property a year, right? But like that, you build to that, right? And then you have multiple of those, and then that's where that compounding effect matters. And then you can put a little bit in land or other assets that take a little longer to mature, or explore with other assets.
So what do you do in this type of environment, right? With high interest rates, with the 10-year treasury at 3.5, 4% hovering around, how do you get the money? Number one, where do you get it? Number two, how and where do you deploy it? And then number three, how do you service it?
So I would say right now is a good time to observe the market and learn. If there's a lot of guys that are new getting into real estate and they're just watching, right now is a good time to like use everything as a case study. If you saw Zillow trade a house 6 months ago, or you see a house on the market remodeled, look at the history of it. Most likely it sold 6 months to a year ago or 2 years ago. See what it sold for, try to estimate the cost of the remodel, right? And if you have MLS, you can pull up MLS, you can look at the history of the house and how it looked before, and look at, okay, they bought it for 700, they bought it for 400, and they did estimated 200,000. They probably initially started off on the market at $1 million, and they were going to make 200,000 profit. Then they dropped it to 950, then 900, and the interest rates kept rising. Now you can estimate that there's a lot of people out there breaking even or losing money, or they're just trying to get out of deals. So right now is not the time to get too aggressive and buy something just to stay active. A lot of people, this is another thing Wayne said, a lot of people move money from one pocket to the other. They're just moving money from one pocket to the other. I'm in the business of profit, right? I don't want to be in the business of wages. You don't want to work for wages. You want to work for profit. Profit means you're cautious on what you buy it right, you make your money on the buy side. So I would just watch the market, observe it, and it's going to be a slow slugging for a while. Morgan Stanley right now, I have capital with Morgan Stanley. They're paying 4.25% on a liquid savings account, 100% liquid. A money market pays 4.7 to 5% interest rate, or 4.7 to 5% yield. So you're getting 5% taking no risk. So right now is a good time to build the capital, save it, and then build relationships with lenders. Find lenders, maybe private lenders, traditional lenders, and just have conversations with lenders, brokers, different people in the industry, and just see what they're doing, what they're offering. So when the right opportunity comes up, you can jump on it. Right? You don't want an opportunity to come up and then they come and go very fast. So if someone doesn't understand if it's the right value and they haven't been watching the market and learning, it'll pass them by. if they've been watching and they already have a lender and they've talked to a couple of friends, they've talked to some lenders and they know that they have capital, when the right opportunity comes up, now they can jump on it and acquire it, and they already have everything lined up for it.
What do you look at as far as like loan to value? I know you're kind of risk adverse like me. What are you trying to put down on certain deals? 10, 20, 30%? And what type of loans are you looking for a lot of your deals? Are you looking to keep them in perpetuity? Are you looking to cash flow, or a 2, 3, 5 year turn? What do you look for? What are some of your secret sauce metrics?
So I would say when I first got into Paradise Valley rental, long-term rental, it was 2006. I was buying properties in PV. You can buy them for $1.2 million to $1.5 million at that time, and they were pretty nice houses. I didn't make any cash flow, so I tried to get as much loan as I could because interest rates were pretty low, and I can get 3.5% rate. That's not possible now, but that's the point. Is not that it's not possible. It's even at 6%. Always make sure it self-services itself, right? If I make
Mm.
zero on that house, if my mortgage and loan and everything is $6,500, and my rent is $6,500, it's fine for me. It's like a win. I might spend a little money on AC or what, but if in this audience, if you guys are looking at houses for like $2,200 is your mortgage and your rental might be $2,300, it's barely going. If you think there's value on the upside, I can't determine that. That's for you when you guys are doing the research. But like if you think there's upside value, buy it and hold it long term. You need to go into it thinking long term strategy, not a flip. And all those guys that flipped, yeah, they did well short term, but guess what? They paid short term income tax, right? They paid ordinary income tax. I pay long term capital gains, and I 1031 my properties, so I don't have big tax bills. And then there's other tax strategies to it. So go through everything as long term investments. Like you're not going to just flip it. Some guys I've seen, they'll buy something or they tie it up and it's a great property or a great value. Someone comes and offers them 10, 20,000 more and they sell it. That's fine if you're starting off, maybe, but why take the quick nickel when you can take the slow quarter, right? Just hold it a little
Okay.
longer, hold it a little longer, rent it out, let it cash flow barely anything, just a little bit, but you're getting the interest write-off, you're paying down the depreciation, you're paying down the principal, you're getting the depreciation, and that's helping your tax offset your income tax during that year anyway. And then 2, 3 years from now, it should be worth more. Hopefully, it just depends if you bought it right. Make sure you buy it right, and you're buying in a good location that you feel like is still is just going to keep maturing.
So you feel okay as long as your rent services your debt and you're not making a dollar, you're cool because you feel the properties that you're acquiring are having great upside potential.
100%. And that's where I got lucky, right? Like with COVID hit, I was so nervous. I was so scared. I thought everything's going to stop. I had multiple properties. Some of them owned luxury car dealerships, and I had guys from Silicon Valley investment bankers in there as tenants. And I was worried I was not going to get any rent. No one missed rent, fortunately. But because I had leverage on it, even if something bad happened and they were going to pay rent, I was going to be fine. I was going to cover itself servicing. But when you go into it as a long-term approach, the market goes in your favor. So at COVID, that's something none of us saw. It's a black swan event. But the properties I had for $1.2 million to $1.5 million now are worth $3 to $4 million. And now it's like, hey, I just made $2 million profit, and that's all I can take all that, which it only took me $300,000 down payment, right? And that's you can do it on a smaller scale, right? It's the same concept. You put $20,000 down, something happened, you made 100, 200,000, and that builds up. But it has to self-service. If you're coming out of pocket and you're paying, that catches up to you very quickly. And even when it's self-servicing, don't get ahead of your skis. That's why I mentioned I get hard on myself sometimes because I feel like I lost out on a lot of good opportunities. But you look back, it's easy to look back. I also was cautious. Like you don't want to get too ahead of your skis because the guys long term, that even guys that made a lot of money quick and maybe they made some bad decisions, they did bad underwriting, they took hard money loans out, they did all the fundamentals wrong. They messed up the deal, the value add was bad, the market went in their favor and they sold and they made a profit. But guess what? Those guys roll it again and then they get stuck and then they hurt themselves. So just be cautious, don't get ahead of your skis.
What is there a quote or something that resonates with you in your life? Is there something that you heard you're like, that makes a lot of sense that you possibly could share with the audience?
I don't know if I have one quote. There's a lot that I always live through. I would say, Michael, if you want, I have a Word document of all the mentors I've had in my life, and I keep track of all these quotes. So I have a Word document, maybe like 40 different quotes, and they're all like good, real quotes, right? Um, If you don't love it on paper, you're not going to love it in person, right? There's all these little things that mean something. I can share that with you, and if you want to share it with your audience, I'm fine to do that. So I think at a certain point, one quote sticks to somebody, and there's a few other quotes. But once you're involved in the business and you have seasonality and you've seen a lot and you have a lot of great mentors and good friends around you, all the quotes turn into a lifestyle, right? And that lifestyle turns into your way of living. And that's really important because now I live the quotes I know. So I can't even regurgitate them. I have to have a whole bunch of them, but it's just my day-to-day life living. And that's the goal, right? The quotes are they're like a little milestone just to kind of look back, or not a milestone, like a little peg, just to be like, all right, that meant something. And then at a certain point, like you live all those quotes, you live them, right? So like every time I'm doing something, I'm like, oh, I think of this, I think of this, and they're part of who you are. It's the same with the books. Think and Grow Rich is a good one. Richest Man in Babylon is another good book. Richest Man in Babylon is one, and The Greatest Salesman in the World. Those three books are really good. The Greatest Salesman in the World is another really good book, and it's not really about sales, but it's a way of thinking. It's a lifestyle. There's quotes in those books. There's quotes from people I have friends with that I have, and then they come up when you're doing something, right? You may forget the quote and not think of it 3 years, and then when something comes up and it's relevant, you're like, I remember that, right? And it means something. So I think the quotes just turn into a lifestyle. I don't have one driving factor. I think for me, I'm trying to appreciate where I'm at now in life and enjoy my son and enjoy the time I have, and not be too hard on myself. Because I think it's hard for guys in our industry not to get hard on themselves because we always want to be the best. We want to be perfect. We want to make perfect timing, make perfect decisions. And we always feel like we're not good enough, right? And I don't know if it like, because I always feel like that, right? I'm like,
Oh yeah, 100%.
like, I heard one of your podcasts, and you're like, yeah, you wake up sometimes, you're like, oh, I feel like a loser, and then I look at the watch, I look at the cars in the house, I'm like, all right, I feel good, and
You feel that
it's
way
true,
too sometimes? Yeah.
dude, it's true. I wake all
Yeah.
the time, I'm like, gosh, I'm like not doing enough. Well, I'm not doing good because it seems like everyone else is doing a lot, but that's also self-imposed, right? There's big hat, no cattle. That's one of my favorite quotes, right? Big hat, no cattle. There's a lot of guys that talk big game, or they work at companies like, oh, I'm selling $80 million of this, and I'm selling $25 million of this, and they're not even brokers, they're employees, so they're making a certain fixed salary. And I did like a $3 million deal, and like, hey, I made like 2 million profit, right? All right, like, yeah, you go side by side and you sit with them, and they're like, oh, I'm doing 60 and 25, and but hey, I'm doing okay. I feel good about my house. I feel good about my life. I'm doing pretty good. And those couple $1 million lifts and even a couple $100,000 lifts, they add up, and making good decisions long term and not making a bad catastrophic decision. That's where you find success.
I love that. Where can they find you, Wasim? Where can they follow you? Where can they get involved with what you're about? And if they have, questions or anything like that, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
So I am off all social media. So I don't have Facebook, I don't have Instagram, I don't have Twitter, I have nothing. So I have no social media following, no presence. I'm not even on LinkedIn. So I deleted my LinkedIn. I have nothing. I have HOH Investment Group is my website, which is a basic, like just black screen, little drop downs. HOH Investment Group, House of Hamaday or Hamaday, House of Hamaday. So HOH Investment Group is my website. That's my company. And then I would say have them just reach out to you if anyone has questions or anything, and you can always forward it off to me. And I'm an open book on stuff, but I'm also hard on people. I met with one guy that was like, I'm gonna drop college because I want to go do real estate. I'm like, all right, why can't you do both? He's like, oh, my mind's going this way and this way, and I just want to focus. I'm such a hustler. I read 10x and I see all these 10x things and Grant Cardone and all these guys, and I'm like, all right, that's fine. You can do both. He's like, no, I got to focus on. I was like, what's your schedule look like for college? And he's like, oh, I have class Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? So like, if someone is not working hard, I'm not easy on them, right? Because like, no one is easy on us, and we're all hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
and that's how it should be. So I think it's as long as people are working hard and they know it's a long-term approach, I'm down to meet with people. So just have them reach out to you, and I'll make myself available.
I love that, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time. I think there's a lot of great nuggets in here. And I can't wait for people to see this once it's edited up and out there. And again, thank you for inviting me to your beautiful Christmas party and getting to meet your beautiful wife and see your home, and really impressed with what you've done. And I can't wait to learn more from you, and hopefully vice versa. We can do more things together.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, we do got to get together much more often too, man. I
I'd
appreciate
like that, man. Get the old synergy going. Use the mind, right?
Exactly, exactly. I think that's where it's really important in this time in the cycle and this time in the economy is if it's a little quiet or there's a lot of uncertainty, get together with like-minded individuals, spend a lot of time with them, and brainstorm off each other because things will come up.
I love that. I love that. All right, man. Thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your workday. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Take
All right.
care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.